Hello and welcome to our podcast.
Wait!
Why is Dom surprised?
You said rolling, right?
Yeah, it's rolling and then wait 5 minutes.
Oh, okay.
5 seconds.
Okay, we can start again.
Ready? Shall I start now? Hello and welcome to our... hello and welcome to our podcast. The Art of Experiences. By the way, this is the fourth take, guys. Hello and welcome to our podcast, The Art of Experiences, where we are talking to you today from our base in Dubai. Now, this is the first time we've done our podcast early in the morning, so we're a little bit full of coffee. So I'd like to warn you in advance that Ravi gets very excited when he drinks coffee, and he might say things he's not meant to. Where were we? Yes, we are the guys who have created, enjoyed, designed and choreographed some of the best experiences in the best locations around the world. Ravi.
Yeah, I mean, before I go to my intro, Nick, I would like to understand, if coffee makes me talk, you keep talking all the while, so what do you keep having?
I'm just high on life, Ravi. I'm just high on life, mate.
That's wonderful. That's wonderful.
Go on, get on with it.
Coffee's still falling.
All right, somebody's impatient here. Okay, guys, this is my first take and the last one. Today we will be podcasting episode 13 in our new series, The Art of Experiences, where we will be discussing the architecture that inspires us.
Wonderful.
There's a lot around us here.
Mm-hmm.
We are Nick, Ravi and Arjun, and we are designers, architects and techies. Above all, we are on a journey to tell the wider world why some experiences just work and some do not.
Thank you, Ravraj. So, well, guys, it's great to be here. Thank you. And we are really looking forward to have this conversation.
Very good. The next part of the script says optional, so does that mean that we opinions are optional?
Dom can read it.
Architecture that inspires us, guys. I mean, you two are architects, so
I know.
I think it's only right that we start with you and talk to us about architecture that inspires you and why it inspires you.
I mean, is it okay if we make a quick improvisation and call it design that inspires us?
We can have a next podcast for that.
Probably. Okay.
I think
I was just trying to be to include
Because it's part of that, but when you talk about design, it kind of opens up a huge
a lot of true.
this thing, right?
I don't like to surprise our listeners. You know, they're very gentle people, and if we jump at them with a new topic, they might be a little bit, perturbed. You need to keep the zen on this podcast, and it's there. People feel it. Apparently. I'm not sure why. Anyway, architecture.
Right.
Did you take notes on the wrong topic?
I hope he's changing it because he's not prepared.
Guys, what you don't know is actually Arjun is very stressed today because, as I told you, we're doing our podcast early in the morning, hence the very full cup of coffee.
Yeah.
And Arjun normally prepares meticulously, as you well know, those of you who listen to this podcast. Today, Arjun opened his laptop, fully prepared, no power. Right, so Arjun, where were we? Architecture that inspires us.
Oh yes.
Finally, we get there. 15 minutes into the podcast.
Exactly. So for me, it's more than architecture. I strongly believe whatever architecture that we see around us in the world is attributed to some architect.
Okay.
It's his way of thinking, which has given birth to a certain specific style of architecture, specific style of buildings that kind of attracts us. So for me, when you say architecture that inspires us, for me, it is architect that inspires me.
Okay.
You know, it's more got to do with the brain behind that particular design or that particular project more than the project itself.
He's still trying to change the topic, Ravi.
I know. He's doing his best, but he's not getting anywhere.
Absolutely not, gentlemen. No.
He's doing his best, but he's not getting anywhere. So maybe Arjun, maybe I'll give you a breather, and probably you can think and gather your thoughts.
I'll give him some coffee.
Give him some coffee. Probably he's eating, having the brown.
I shouldn't have told you guys that there is no power in my laptop.
Just the way Dom said us something which we shouldn't have known actually.
I know.
Which would have never been known actually.
Exactly.
Anyway.
So now we're wondering.
So I think I would like to literally step back a lot, and architecture actually goes back a lot. I mean, today when I actually we have this topic, I realized that how history of architecture has influenced us when we were the students of architecture. And going back, in the ages of even Indus Valley civilization, or even the Egyptian civilization, or the Stone Age, and we move forward from there, and we come to Parthenon and Panthenons, and then the beautifully designed all these Roman structures, the churches, even the temples in India. They all tell a story, and they all have inspired human beings or mankind from age to age, from centuries to centuries, and that inspiration has led to the next big thing in architecture, and then that inspiration has led to the next big thing in architecture, and the 19th century came into picture, and you talk about such beautiful structured Roman architecture, industrial architecture, colonization, even deconstruction. French Revolution happened, and the complete architecture in Paris changed for that. And also, when you come to I'm going to just fast forward and come to 20th and 21st century, when technology was available to the architects, I still remember looking at old pictures of huge architecture studios, like 50 people with a drafting board and doing that. But now technology has enabled complex structures to be actually really built. And not only built, but in real time, in a quick manner,
Yeah.
So I think architecture has always inspired the mankind in one way or the another. Whether you realize it or you don't realize it, the space around you has always inspired you.
Yeah.
Now, whether that inspiration is positive or whether that inspiration is negative is all, I would say, attributed to the architecture of the space. So that's where that's how great architects are great, and normal architects are normal architects. Because they cannot inspire civilization. Great architects are those people who inspire civilization.
I think. I mean, I kind of agree with you, but I also have a slightly different perspective. I mean, I think architecture is a celebration of things. Architecture celebrates engineering excellence, it celebrates cultural excellence, it celebrates religious excellence. It's used as a mobilizer for cultures, people, events. It marks times in history. If I think back to the 1850s in the UK, when the Crystal Palace was built to house the Great Exhibition, which was a turning point in the Industrial Revolution, where the Industrial Revolution really began with the advent of the steam engine and all of the kind of automated processes that came along around that time. And then if I go further back in time and I think about some of the Greek and Roman architecture and how that mobilized civilizations, and it was a celebration of almost of mankind overcoming the laws of physics in some cases. So, and these are the things that inspire me about architecture. And then if I fast forward to the modern day and I look at some of the work of Zaha Hadid and things that she's doing, Calatrava, some of the way that his work defies the laws of physics and draws you together to celebrate really a triumph over something that you thought couldn't be done. Then alongside that, I look at other things. I look at some of the great cities of the world, and all of the great cities of the world have their own architectural marvels. London being my city, is full of them. They're everywhere. From the old churches and the old architectural buildings, examples of architecture, through to the engineered kind of industrial buildings like the Tate Modern that's been reinvigorated and turned into a fantastic museum. It was a power station before. To the more modern buildings like the Shard, some of the bridges that they're using for spanning the Thames, the famous one, of course, which became a bit wobbly, but they fixed it. Each of the cities, you look at Sydney, it's got the Opera House. You look at New York, and it's got the Twin Towers, and it's got the Chrysler Building. If you look at Dubai, we've got the Burj Al Arab and the Burj Khalifa. If you look at Paris, it's got the Eiffel Tower. If you look at many of the world's great cities, if you look at Rio, it's got the Statue of Christ. Many of the great cities of the world have statement pieces of architecture that mobilize people behind a common purpose, and not only do that, but they do it in a way that really inspires. And I think, at every level, at a superficial level, when you look at something, you think, wow, that's amazing. And then when you dig deeper and you start to look at some of the dynamics of the design and how the engineering work was developed, how the materials were used, etc., you start to see so much more about in architecture.
Sorry to cut you in, Nick. I'm not sure what kind of architecture does both of you like. I'm not the kind of person who have really loved all those ornamental works in architecture, especially that has happened during the Renaissance era. However, one of the architects that still stays, that inspires me with his work is Antonio Gaudi. From Spain. The kind of work that he has done, the kind of organic form he comes up with, and the church, the very famous church, Sagrada Familia, what he has done, took 44 years to build. The kind of detailing that he has done, how the column and the buttress fills into the roof and becomes part of the structure. So, for me, there's a whole set of architecture that has happened in Europe. And rest of the part of the world. Now, a whole lot of architecture, the style of architecture that has inspired me, the kind of architects that has inspired me. For example, there's an architect in India, I'll tell the name at the end of explaining it. He designed a dance academy. Now, usually what architects do, what we do, is we have all the entire set of drawings ready, the BOQ is ready, and then we chase the contractor to kind of finish the work and then look at deviation that happens on the way. And this particular architect stayed on site for almost a year and a half.
Wow.
Designed the project on the site, and the workers went along with the design, and eventually that won an award.
So you're talking about the story behind the
Exactly.
I mean, this is perhaps what I meant, Arjun, where you look at the building, and the buildings themselves are some amazing, some not. But if you go behind that and you look at the story of how it came from a piece of dirt or ground into whatever it becomes, it really is.
Who's the architect?
It's Gerard Dicuna.
I have a question.
Yes.
Is there a specific one, architecture, that really inspires you and you cannot take it out of your head whenever you're thinking about design and
I can answer that question. It depends on my mood, actually. And it does. I mean, there's a place, and one of the questions I was going to ask the guys later on in the podcast was, if you could name one building that you could see before you lost your sight, what building would it be? And for me, there are examples of ancient architecture and examples of modern architecture, which I just don't get bored of looking at. That I marvel at them. And some of them are not very remarkable. So I like things like igloos because I'm intrigued by the structure and the way that ice is shaped to create a structure that allows people to live in the freezing cold but to survive in ice effectively. There's a temple in a place called Kyoto in Japan called King Kakuji Temple. It's the Golden Temple. And it's not just the architecture, but it's the space it's in, the surroundings, the lake, the trees, the whole thing. It is without doubt, if on a sunny day, the most beautiful thing I've ever seen when it comes to architecture. And if you look at the design of it, it's very simple. It's just essentially a box. It's golden, and it has a beautiful story that goes with it. And the story goes that I think it was in the 13 or 1400s. There was a monk that was looking after the temple, the King Kakuji Temple, and he got so frustrated with the beauty that it overpowered him and overcame him, so to the extent where he burnt the temple down because he thought it was so beautiful. It was almost godly. So he destroyed it. So that inspires me as well because of the story. And when I look at some of the ancient architecture, some of the things I've seen in India just blow my mind. When I go to the pyramids and I look at the pyramids, I mean, seriously, those guys were incredible. And the same in Latin America when you see some of the structures that were built thousands and thousands of years ago by people using their bare hands. Even things like Stonehenge in the UK, nobody really knows how it was built. It's inspiring. It's just a lumps of rock that have moved hundreds of miles. So those sort of things inspire me. And then in the more modern sense, as I was explaining earlier to the guys, I like things that defy physics. So I've seen images, and Instagram's wonderful for this, and Pinterest. I've seen images of cantilevered swimming pools. You know, it's a small thing, but it really inspires me. I just think, well, how on earth did they do that?
Yeah.
And they're high up. You know, and you see these guys swimming around in the water, and you just think, how did that work? It's all glass and stuff, and I think probably to do with technology and materials and the advancement of that kind of stuff. And then one more thing, and then I'll let the other guys speak. I'm not one really for going to churches and marvelling at their brilliance, but some of them, particularly St Paul's Cathedral and the Vatican, are incredible. St Paul's Cathedral, the way that building is designed, with the whispering gallery, where if somebody's in that whispering gallery, you can hear their voice many meters away. And the Vatican, the size, the scale, the kind of the way, everything it represents, it's pretty impressive. Yeah, so that's my long answer to your short question.
There's this book called Architecture Without Architects.
Yeah.
So basically, when you were talking about igloo, that's one of the things that came to my mind. For sure, nobody sat there designing igloo and the client giving them feedback to change it.
Yeah.
It didn't happen that way. It just happened in due course of time with what is available, what the necessity was.
Yeah.
So it just evolved from human needs.
Figured it out. Yeah.
Exactly.
Yeah.
I'm not sure if such type of work can be called vernacular. Definitely it's regional based on what's available, and at the same time based on the necessity to try it as small as possible so that people can stay warm.
Yeah.
So there's a whole lot of functional thought that has gone behind it.
Yeah.
Now coming back to the other point that you were about to ask, and I think which you partially asked, which is one structure that you would like to stand in front of before you lose your sight.
Yeah.
For me, one of the civilizations that has actually drawn my interest is the Mayans.
Yeah.
And I keep reading a lot about Mayans and Aztecs and Incas and all that. And one thing in very particular, which is their sun temple in Mexico, which is that it's called the Sun Temple in Teotihuacan. It's one of the structure is massive from a human perspective. And if you look at the pyramids are, it has got very shiny smooth surface, whereas these ones are called the step pyramids, probably predecessor of all these pyramids. Yeah. So the way of thinking, comparing where Egypt is and where Mexico is, it's very interesting to know people kind of thought about engineering huge structures in a particular way. But at the same time, what is more intriguing is this was a sacrificial temple back in the day, which means the high priest would stand right at the apex of the building, chop your head off or whatever organ that they wanted to chop, and they would just push you down the stairs.
Charming.
So the flight of stairs that lead you to the apex of the building was covered in blood during a particular time of the year. Now it is said that the structure is so constructed that during the time of equinox, the shadow that forms on the steps looks like a serpent. Now, how did they manage to do that is a question.
Wow.
Understanding the position of the sun, how the shadow is formed, the play of light and shadow, that's intriguing considering how long ago that particular structure was built. Today, we have all types of simulation tools. You can do that in the computer and understand, that's not how I thought it to be. I would like to make a tweak here, I would like to make a tweak there. Back in the day, there was nothing. Not even computer, not even a drafting table for that matter, not even a rotating drafting pen. It just happened. They knew what they were doing. So that intrigues me quite a bit.
Isn't that the amazing thing about architecture? It really is. Architectural statements at different periods in time, each one of them represents the pinnacle of mankind's ability to overcome physics, science, to make a statement about their culture in that moment in time. Look at the Acropolis in Athens, for example, the Colosseum in Rome. The pyramids that you mentioned in Mexico. All of these things, they're a statement in time. And I wonder actually, as you were talking, we live in a city which is amazing, and if you guys haven't been here, you should come. It really is amazing. But we have the world's tallest building here in Dubai, the Burj Khalifa. I wonder in 5,000 years if that building will still be standing. And I wonder in 5,000 years what people will think about that building and how it was built. Because I think we've become, my guess is it won't be standing in 5,000 years' time. I'd like to think it will, because I think it represents a moment in time that really is amazing, and it symbolises what's happened here, where we transformed this desert into a vibrant culture. I don't think it will be, but I'd like to think it would be. But we each have a responsibility to continue perhaps our heritage of making these bold statements about the future. I mean, look, for example, I was thinking of the Chinese Wall, Great Wall of China.
Yeah.
Seriously, I mean, goodness sake, this thing can be seen from space.
True.
And things like the Palm will probably still be here. That's maybe, you could argue, an architectural marvel.
Yeah.
But nonetheless, I think we have a responsibility to continue that tradition of using architecture to make a statement of our triumph over physics, and a statement about our culture and about our innovation and things. And one more thing before I shut up, we haven't mentioned 3D printing.
Yeah.
And how 3D printing buildings could inspire us. It inspires me. The fact that we can 3D print using concrete is amazing.
Yeah.
And the fact that process could, in the fullness of time, be used to solve some of the challenges we have about providing housing for people who are less fortunate than us. So much to talk about, really. Yeah.
Indeed.
Yeah.
Indeed.
I mean, yeah, absolutely. I think it's just when you both were talking, there's so many thoughts raising in my mind, and architecture for me, I mean, one of those questions that come, which structure and all that stuff for your lifetime. I think architecture for me is like a poetry, and just as poetry, it, as you said, Nick, it depends on your mood, what you want to listen to, So there are many buildings which inspire me, and they have inspired me in different times of my life, and I have actually come to learn how to appreciate even the structures which were not even counted as architectural structures before,
Yeah.
and it draws back to me to India. To two things which I wanted to talk from India is about. One is the temples which were built by our ancestors. Now, in some states, if you go down south of India, I have visited temples which were actually carved out from the mountains. And they actually, there was no plan elevation section. They just started carving from front to the end. And they were like 1 or 2 floors, temple, and that's I think marvelous, to understand, have that kind of imagination, and keep on carving, which is itself is a difficult job to do.
Yeah.
And the second one, which draws my attention as I've grown to understand what architecture is all about, is the forts which are in Maharashtra, which were built by the Hindu warrior King Shivaji, and he was the first one to actually build a fleet or navy fleet basically, and he built actually 23 forts across the coast of India, which were facing the west, and the architecture and the engineering, because I have actually heard a lot about the lectures and everything now people are giving on YouTube, and the engineering that they have used is simply amazing, None of the forts ever get flooded during high tide, and none of the forts are very away from the water as well, So the way they have designed, and one of the forts which is actually in the middle of the water, you can't even see the entrance. So for the enemy to understand where the entry is to the fort to attack is out of question, So these are like small things, as you mentioned, whispering gallery. One of the forts also has that where the king is sitting, he can hear from any point in the fort, which is more like a 10-kilometer area fort. Anybody listening, anybody whispering, anybody talking, the king can listen to them, So that's the kind of engineering which has gone into that. We have over a period of time got drawn into more modern structures and everything, which is fine, which is obviously we'll keep on doing that, but I like the example of igloo, because that's a response to your natural habitat, and I think architecture is more of evolution of your natural habitat and response to natural habitat, so this is what inspires me, Apart from the modern structure, obviously, I mean, I think one of the structures I would like to see before I die is Empire State Building.
Oh yes,
Wow.
yeah.
Because I believe that was a defining moment of the American dream.
It was. Yeah.
And I would like to see that, although the dream doesn't exist anymore. But I would still like to see that, because although it's not a tallest building anymore, but it has defined for centuries, a complete different culture, a complete different dream, and a complete different civilization for the entire world. So for me, my pick would be because all other buildings. I stay in Dubai, so I've seen Burj
Yeah.
Khalifa. I've not seen Burj Al Arab, but I've seen from outside. I have seen other structures. I've been to China. In India, I've seen many forts, temples. I've seen the pyramids of Gizeh and everything, which excites me as well. But I think this is the one which I would like to see before I
I
die.
don't think you'll be
Interesting.
disappointed, Ravi. I've been lucky enough to see that building, and on the outside, it's amazing. But when you go inside, it's also amazing. The level of detail in each aspect is really amazing. And yes, it's not the tallest, although it was at one point.
Yeah, it was,
the world's tallest building. I think for a few
Yeah.
days before. I think was it
The World Trade Tower was a
the
big
Trade
center.
Center.
Chrysler building. I got a Chrysler building. I think somewhere. I hear that, but you won't be disappointed.
Also, one more thing is that, as a student of architecture, when I visit all these museums or any structures in the UK or the Greek or Rome, actually, I can sit there for hours marveling their detailing and
Correct.
thinking of how they would have come up with this detail, that detail,
True.
the north light detail, the truss detail. Is it a 3-point arch or is it a 4-point arch? And I can just go an hour and hour, much to my annoyance of my wife. But I love that. I love to just wander around these structures and understand how those men would be so great men to do that without the help of any technology and anything.
What about you, Arjun? I mean,
Yeah.
what would you choose?
On what?
What would be your piece of architecture? You mentioned about
I know.
Mexico, but is there a more modern piece of architecture?
A more
that you
modern
might be
piece of
interested in?
architecture would be Frank Gehry's work, Guggenheim Museum.
Oh, would
in
it?
Spain.
Okay. I'm very lucky to
The one in the US or one in the
In New York?
No, not the one in the US. That's Frank Lloyd Wright.
Oh yeah.
Yeah.
Sorry. Yeah.
Oh, sorry.
The Guggenheim in US is Frank Lloyd Wright. I want to see the one done by Frank Gehry,
In
which is
Germany.
in Spain, Milano,
So-
Spain.
okay. Yes.
Wow.
Is that the metal one, Arjun?
Exactly.
Okay.
Exactly.
Oh, sorry,
yes,
Mike.
yes. Frank Gehry, yes.
Super cool.
But just to take a bit more from what Ravraj said, I think if we talk about the various different architectural styles and evolution of architecture and everything, yes, I'm a big fan of Italian architecture with the kind of detailing that they do
Yeah.
and the kind of ornamental work that they do. It's timeless. Even if you go there and stand in front of the building right now, you don't feel like, it's out of place or out of time or out of context. It still carries that
spirit, yeah.
exactly.
Yeah.
Carries that beauty which is ageless. Now, when you step back and go back to my own country, which is India, the architecture in India mostly is defined by the so-called temple architecture and the fort architecture back in the day. But the fort architecture, to a large extent, was not detailed to like what you see in Europe or UK or anywhere across the globe. But one of the rock-cut temples that I hold very close to my heart is one in Tamil Nadu, which is about 2,700 years old.
Wow.
And that entire structure was cut into a rock.
Wow.
And a lot of pieces that you still see are monoliths. So
Wow.
pieces of rock wherein they have actually carved out the structure from that particular stone and put things in place. It's just amazing.
I've seen a few of these examples, and there's one in Jordan, which is called Petra, which is absolutely amazing. Similar thing, I mean, the scale, the size, the fact that these guys basically with a hammer and a chisel.
Yeah.
And
that's
then,
what,
and then there's another one in Ethiopia called Lalibela, and Lalibela is actually not dug into the rock, but dug downwards.
Wow.
And these guys, Christians, they built these series of temples with interlocking pathways and things in this area called Lalibela. It's absolutely amazing. if you imagine standing on a rock and thinking, right, I'm going to build a series of temples here, and I'm going to start digging with a hammer and chisel. That's what they did.
Yeah.
And they dug down, maybe 50, 60 meters, and they built these amazing buildings with all of the detail and everything on them, all interconnecting with pathways and corridors and everything. Absolutely insane, yeah. And I don't think we can do that stuff now. I mean, the things we do are amazing, okay?
Yeah.
World's tallest building, awesome.
Yeah.
The other new world's tallest building, which is being built just down the road there, amazing. But can we really do a Lalibela? Can we really do the temple that you were describing in India? Can we really do that now? I mean,
I really doubt that.
I don't see it.
I doubt, because I think all these things happened because of the demand of the time,
Yeah.
what was available to them and what was their surrounding, the time of the civilization back then.
I doubt whether people demanded it. I think they did it as a celebration. They said,
Yeah.
look what we can do. If we dedicate ourselves to something, this is what we can achieve. And there are all kinds of power. Maybe the idea of building architectural statements, bold architectural statements to celebrate our moment in time and our innovation and things is a thing of the past.
Yeah.
I'd hate to think it is. But that's what they did. They built churches to celebrate their gods, whatever they were, and to even in China, you see these small temples right up high on the edge of a mountain and all that stuff. They did this to celebrate their gods or their technological or engineering prowess. I don't really know if
I don't know. I
We've
mean,
done the
if
same.
today, because today there's so much technology available, I think the thought process might be something different.
Yeah, I don't know.
No, I would just say, I'm not sure if our viewers are used to this. There is a channel called Gaia,
Yeah.
which kind of looks deep into civilizations which have been long forgotten.
Yeah.
And one of the key arguments that they always put forward is the civilizations of the past were more technologically advanced than us. We believe that we are at the pinnacle of innovation and pinnacle of technology in comparison to them, but what they're saying is it's actually the other way around.
Yeah. Well,
So what comes to my mind is I've been a very bad student when it came to town planning, but there are different stages through which a city would go.
Yeah.
I remember the first and the last stage, sir. So the first one is called the Neopolis, which is the birth of a city,
Yeah.
and the last stage being the Necropolis, which is the death of a
Death of
city.
a city.
And then they say they keep going through that cycle over and over again. So
Yeah.
you never know where we are in that particular cycle. We believe we are much more advanced. Probably we are going the spiral downward, and then there will be an upward spiral at later point of time, which is much more advanced than what we are today.
Yeah, I think so. And I think, don't get me wrong, viewers, I'm not negative about the current status, but I do think that that it's a different way of thinking about, of celebrating our position in time. I mean, we're putting people in space now. We're digging hyperloops, we're building hyperloops.
Yeah.
We're talking about building a railway under the sea from India to the Middle East.
Yeah.
We're doing some pretty cool stuff. We're building the Palm. We're building the world's tallest building. It's all amazing. But I look at the pyramids and I think they lasted 5,000 years.
Yeah. True.
Yeah.
I think
Tom's
almost,
going like this.
Oh yeah, okay. I think almost every historical monument has lasted more than 1,000 years.
Yeah.
And it just that's just a wonderful thing about it.
It's a bit like me, Ravi.
Yeah.
An historical
Yeah.
monument. It's lasted nearly
only
1,000 years.
if I could say it's a wonderful thing about you, but anyway.
It's good and bad, Ravi. It's always good and bad. Right, guys, I hope you enjoyed the chat.
Yes.
I certainly did. It's opened my mind to a lot. So after these conversations, I always find myself thinking, gosh, there's a lot more to talk about.
I know, yeah.
And I find it terribly inspiring. It kind of sets me up for the week. And I pity these poor guys that work with me, because now they're going to hear me talking about architecture all week. Thank God it'll only be for a week, because next week we're going to be talking about something else. And Arjun will tell you about that. Well, I will in a minute. Looking at the script. So without further ado, to work through our outro, I will hand over to the gentleman on my left, at the far end, with a fresh haircut, to do his bit.
Thank you. So thank you for listening to The Art of Experience with Nick, Raviraj and myself. And thank you to our producer Dom and Taha, who is on the left side. and for putting the podcast together. So yes, we did enjoy that particular conversation. Thank you.
Very good. You'll get to meet Taha as well one of these times, guys.
Yeah.
He's crazy, yeah? Crazy. This guy.
And
You can hear him. There you are, there's his voice.
They can see me if I show this.
Oh, good grief. Go on then, give us that picture. This is what Dominic looks like, guys. Yeah, I know, that should help our numbers, Dom.
That's called self-marketing, by the way.
Okay, and then follow me.
Should we give you your Instagram? Should we give that now, Dom, or later? Okay. There's a few bikini shots in there for those of you that like that.
yeah, there you go. You got 50 likes for us. All right. I think before I just say my outro, I think Arjun, with your new haircut, you're just slaying it, huh? I think all the girls are running helter skelter. Yeah.
Thank you.
We get comments about Arjun looking like George Michael, George Clooney. There's a George theme with Arjun.
Anything but Hindu.
Well, yeah, I guess there's a Hindu god called George.
All right. Dom is now raising
out.
her eyebrows and looking at me, so I better read my outro. If you enjoyed our show, please don't forget to like and subscribe to our YouTube channel, The Art of Experiences, and leave your comments below. Thank you.
Right, finally it's me. We've got a very exciting week coming up this week. We've got a friend of ours visiting from the UK, which we're really looking forward to. She's arriving on Monday night, staying with us for the week. So one of the things we're going to be doing with her when she's over here is visiting Expo 2020 in Dubai, the World Expo. So we thought that next week it might be quite fun for you guys to listen to us talking about Expo and what it is, what's happening there and what we thought of it. Sadly, our George Michael lookalike won't be with us next week. Clooney, in brackets, Michael in brackets Clooney, lookalike, won't be with us next week. He's off on a short trip, but he will be ably replaced by the beautiful and somewhat charismatic, in brackets, Dominique.
With the Instagram below.
With the Instagram below, hashtag Dominique. Dominique will be an able stand-in for George Michael. So we look forward to welcoming you next week. For now, though, have a good week. Please please do all the other things that you normally do, and keep following us and downloading our podcast. Thank you very much.
Thank you.